Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Talk Shine Your Light. Shari Hembry here, author of Journey of the Lightworker, your magical journey to authenticity, self-love, and finding life's true purpose. I have a very special guest today. I am so excited, Rob Mack. I met Rob about a year and a half ago when I attended this really amazing conference called Reignite Your Light Universal Lightworkers Conference. Rob was one of the speakers, and his topic, Happiness from the Inside Out, which is also the name of his book, fired me up. Rob began to question his successful life and whether it brought him true happiness. After stepping away from his corporate career, he began to study applied positive psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. He has now gone on to become a leading expert in transformational coaching to individuals and corporations. One thing you'll definitely notice about Rob is his enthusiasm and compassion in helping others. Welcome to the show today, Rob. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that incredible introduction. You are such a light yourself.
Oh, and you're a light as well. I just really connected with you when I met you, and you're doing such amazing work. And I really appreciate you sharing your time today with the audience. I'd love to share a little bit about your background. Rob is a highly acclaimed happiness coach, endorsed by Oprah, Vanessa Williams, Marci Shimoff, and many others. In addition to serving as a celebrity love coach for the TV show Famously Single on E! Network, Rob has been featured as a guest expert on the Today Show, Good Morning America, Entertainment Tonight, and the CBS Early Show. He is also the author of the book that I mentioned, Happiness from the Inside Out, which is truly an amazing book that will inspire you to make tangible changes in your life. Rob holds a master's in applied psychology from the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Thank you so much. Boy, I'm going to have to come back here more often. You're so nice to me. You're so nice to me.
You have such an impressive background. I just wanted to make sure I shared it with everybody. It really is. And I'd love for you to tell the audience a little bit more about you. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? Maybe some obstacles in life that you've overcome.
Yeah. I grew up in a cow town way outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I had an incredibly loving family. I did pretty well academically, really well athletically, but I was miserable. I was a very unhappy kid, very shy. I was voted most shy of my high school class. I was also the 200 of my high school class, but very shy and insecure and unhappy. Went on to take a corporate consulting job after undergrad. And, the people were great, but I hated the work. Yeah. So, that unhappiness that I always thought I'd grow out of simply by doing well in school and doing well on the sports field and by having some friends and a girlfriend, that unhappiness never went away. It just got worse.
Yeah. And any obstacle in life that you've overcome that you might want to share with the audience?
Totally. I mean, I would say that this has been the greatest obstacle right here, the unhappiness piece, because I remember having two beautiful German cars and I was finally making some decent money and felt good about that. But this unhappiness grew into depression and it eventually led to suicidal ideation. So I was thinking of suicide dozens and dozens of times a day. And in fact, I felt like that was the only option for me. So I eventually did some research, decided I was going to kill myself, and decided I would slit my wrist in the kitchen, got a kitchen knife, and I dug it into my wrist. And you might not be able to see it there on the screen.
Yeah.
I still have those suicide test marks to this day. But something very strange and unpredictable happened in that moment, which is that for no good reason, without anything changing in my objective conditions of my life, I felt this inexplicable peace and limitless love and deep joy, the kind of which I had never experienced before in my life. So at that point, I decided to postpone the suicide for like an hour, which isn't a very long time, but that hour bled into several days. And now I look back 2 decades later and I can barely recognize, that young man who was so suicidal.
Yeah, I think you've totally transformed your life, and I'm so proud of you. And I know that we've all had those low moments in our lives where we have thought about, exiting. Essentially, we think, how do we go on from here? And so I'm so appreciative of you sharing your story, because I think it will resonate with so many people out there. And I know you got your master's in applied positive psychology. And I wondered if you would explain the concept of that a little bit. I know it's based on scientific principles. I think it may have originated at Harvard. I might be wrong on that. But I believe you're basically stating that happiness is a science and that it can be learned. And I'd love to hear more about that.
So well said, spoken like an author and a teacher. That's precisely it. The science of applied positive psychology is really the study and science of happiness and what makes life worth living. And so there are thousands and thousands of studies that have been conducted over about 2 decades that basically tell us what does lead to a happy life and what doesn't, what leads to a successful life and what doesn't. And we can sort of call on this empirical data to inform us about how we can live a happier, healthier, and wealthier life for ourselves and our loved ones. And so it grew out of Harvard and University of Pennsylvania's research labs, but also a lot of the surveys they conducted with everyday people like you and me.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that you could study happiness. You would think that it would be intuitive, but I think the way that we grow up, we learn, as you were mentioning, we're not really our authentic selves, and we learn to focus, as you were talking about, on things that will make us happy that don't make us happy. And
boy, you just nailed it. Spoke like someone who's had firsthand experience with that, right? Like,
yeah,
and you're right. Sort of happiness is a science, which means it's something that we can look to the scientific world to inform us about, but it's also an art, right? So we have to customize it for ourselves. And there's something incredibly intuitive about happiness. I think often you hear what the science of positive psychology has to say about living a happy life, and it resonates with you at a deep level, despite maybe not having read all the scientific books. And that's what I discovered, is that, lots of what I was reading and learning through the science of positive psychology, I had heard shared with spiritual teachers and philosophers and poets. And so it's both an art and a science. You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah. And then you took all of that. Obviously, you do coaching, but you've turned it into this amazing book that is so easy to read, but then it's based on those scientific principles. And it's got a lot of very, 8 principles that we can apply. And if you just can tackle even 3 or 4 of those, your life is going to be so different. And I know one of the principles from your book, Happiness from the Inside Out, you talk about non-attachment. And I'm just curious, how difficult is that to achieve? Because that's been one of the ones that I've struggled with, to be honest.
Welcome to the party. That's why I had to share it.
I'm a make it happen person.
Oh my goodness. And you really are. It's one of the things I love most about you. So the easy way to explain non-attachment is that it's the lazy, intelligent way to achieve happiness, right? And so the idea is that instead of routing your happiness through other people or places or conditions or things in the world, you go directly to the source for it, which is within you. And what that means is not attaching your happiness to anybody or anything in the world. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy people and you can't enjoy the world. In fact, you can enjoy the world so much more, and you can enjoy and love people so much more when you don't need them to make you happy.
Yes.
So this means, for the most part, creating a practice where you consistently go directly inside for the happiness that you normally or have historically sought through people and places and things.
Yes. And I love that whole concept. And again, that's something that I've had to study and I have to keep reminding myself of, and not overly focus on the outcome of something. It's more about being happy in the moment. And I'm not always very good at doing that. So I still work on that a little bit.
Welcome to the human race party, Shari.
Yeah, absolutely. So I admit my flaws. Yeah. And you talk about another principle, embracing adversity, which I think is perfect considering that we've gone through a pandemic this year. Can you talk a little bit about how we can constructively embrace adversity?
Yeah, so this is a beautiful segue, and this is why these conversations with you are so great, because if you look at your life, I know when I look at my life, some of the worst things turned out to be some of the best things in my life.
Yes.
Some of the best things turned out to be the worst things in my life.
Right.
So one thing I'm clear about is that I'm not very clear about what will and won't make me happy, for instance. I often think it's going to be a person or a place or a thing. But if you live long enough, you begin to see through all of that, right? And so part of the challenge and the opportunity with that is coming back around to realizing that whatever it is that you're seeking in the world, you ultimately have sort of within yourself, and it's creating a sort of practice of that day in and day out. Just stop there.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's sort of like it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And when I look back at my life, I've had the rug kind of pulled out from under me where everything fell apart at one time. And I just really had two choices. I could sit there and wallow in my despair and do nothing, as we were discussing earlier, or I could pick myself up, look up to God and ask for help and just start making the best of what appeared to be a bad situation. But ironically, it took me down a whole nother path. I ended up becoming an author. I will be producing teachings this coming year. And so without that adversity in my life, I would have just stayed stuck, I think, and never moved my life forward.
So well said. And that's precisely it. The thing about adversity is that it forces you to slow down, take stock of your life and what's truly important, and reprioritize your life accordingly. And it often strengthens the strong relationships that are in your life, but it weeds out the weak ones. And so there's this reprioritization and recalibration process that happens kind of effortlessly in lots of ways. But if you put effort in, it goes even better. The one thing I want to speak to real quickly is that most of us hear a lot about post-traumatic stress disorder, right? So when we have something bad happen, lots of adversity or trauma, we often or sometimes experience post-traumatic stress disorder. But a much more common outcome from adversity and even the worst kinds of trauma is post-traumatic growth. Most people, when they face adversity and they face tough times, they actually grow as a result of it, even if they're not trying. So they come out better and often more blissful, more tapped into and turned on to their purpose and their meaning and to passion. And they live lives that they feel are much more worth living. And so that's a really important sort of point that you make around adversity. The challenge there is just to, of course, experience what you're thinking and feeling fully and all the way through, but also use it as an opportunity to clarify your values and what you most want, to experience in your life.
And I totally agree with you. And that segues very nicely into another principle that you have about positive focus and basically finding the better feeling aspect of all experiences. Can you describe a little bit about how you achieve this?
I sure can. The hard way. I've learned everything the hard way, Shari. So
me too.
I've learned things the hard way. So we have that in common. And when you learn them the hard way, they often stick, though. And so positive focus is really about this idea. And I heard Wayne Dyer say it well once. He said, the law of flotation wasn't discovered by contemplating the thinking of things. So the way I say it simply is that you can't be happy by focusing on unhappy things. It's impossible, and you can't be happy by focusing in an unhappy way on happy things. And so you've got to get this sort of like positive focus down pat, and you want to practice telling a better feeling story about everything in your life, based in truth, of course, because it's not based in truth, it won't feel better, but do that consistently for the joy of it alone. So it sounds like that was a tough day, that was a tough experience, but my favorite part of that was, or what I enjoyed about that was, or sometimes you see this meme that says something like, I never lose, I only win, or I learn, right? That's the idea.
Yeah, I love that. I also find that by keeping a gratitude journal, it helps me to focus on the good aspects of what happened in my day, because things are going to happen. Things aren't always going to go your way, but it's more your perception of the world around you and where you choose to focus your attention. And that is the law of attraction. You attract more of what you focus on. So I think that's what you're kind of talking about here.
Absolutely. And you nailed it and said it so beautifully. Another way to talk about gratitude is love. What do you love? What do you love in the world, about yourself? And can you spend more of your life and your time and your energy focusing on what you love. Because look, we've got to take this journey called life anyway. Sometimes it's scary and it's painful. Other times it's fun and sexy and it feels alive. But either way, that you've got to take the journey. You want to try to enjoy the journey as much as humanly possible. And you can do that best if you focus on that which makes you come alive, makes you happy, that you feel grateful for, or that which you love.
Yes, the art of fulfillment, I guess.
That's right. That's right.
I'd like to say.
That's right.
And another principle that you have that I think is fascinating, it's one of my very favorite, it's inspired action. And I love this concept. Can you discuss a little bit more about how that happens? And, are we paying attention to be able to figure out when we're being, inspired? So
this goes back to the lazy intelligence approach I talked about a little earlier, which is how can we get better or at least equal results with everything and anything in our life based on less time, energy, and effort, right? And so the idea essentially here is, we try to get too much leverage out of action, right? We try to do. We're all about hustle and the grind and time management and all these things, and that's great. And that being said, you'll notice if you look out into the world, there are some folks who don't feel or seem nearly as stressed or as anxious or as overwhelmed, who are accomplishing a lot more with the same amount of time and energy that you have. And so it's about inspired action. It's about finding alignment first and reaching for joy and happiness and self-love and gratitude even, but peace at the very least. Reaching for peace before you take that action, before you speak or have that conversation, before you make that big decision. If you're not aligned with the deeper intuitive knowing that I sometimes call God or source or life, then it takes you a lot more action to get the results that you're after. And so it's really about aligning first and then taking action, aligning first and then having the conversation.
Yeah. And it's funny to become aligned. You talked about achieving peace, and you're very right. Like if we meditate, and I know you're a big proponent of meditation as well, if we can quiet our mind and really listen to our inner self and God, and we will hear the answers, but we have to have a quiet mind to achieve that. So
that's absolutely right. And that kind of comes around to, there's incredible benefit in positive thinking. Positive thinking is so much better and more joyful than negative thinking.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there is incredible benefit, I'd almost say infinite benefit, in sometimes not thinking at all. Yeah. Sometimes my best moments, my most enjoyable moments in life are when my mind is cool, quiet, calm, collected, composed, and I'm just enjoying whatever or whomever is in front of me at that moment.
Yes, and as children, we knew how to do that. We were in the moment. We were outside playing. The sun was shining. It was a beautiful day. We had no plans, agenda. It was just one moment to the next. And then as we go through our lives, we learn how to become very structured, and we have to do this. And so to get back into that almost childlike wonderment of the world is an amazing thing to accomplish. So
it's true. As adults, we feel guilty and we think we're being lazy. But my mom is great about always reminding me, hey, Rob, honey, I know you're working at this or working at that, but all the great things that have happened to you professionally and personally have happened when you went to the pool, when you went for a walk, when you just took a nap. It's amazing how incredibly effective and efficient the universe or universal intelligence is when you simply relax.
Yes. And I know you put together coaching programs for either individuals or corporations. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you go about doing that, like whether it's for an individual or just, kind of highlight some things there?
Yeah. So, I have my sort of tried and true approach to coaching individuals and teams and organizations. And I always want to honor that. But at the same time, even more deeply, I want to honor that every individual team and organization is different. So I customize the content in that way. But it's really a sort of time-tested, face-valid, empirically supported approach to helping individuals, couples, teams, and organizations get the most out of life and the most out of themselves with less time, energy, and effort. It really is about lazy intelligence.
Great. And if folks would like to get in touch with you to learn more about your services, your book, am flashing your website. Is that the best way to get in touch with you?
You are so good. That's perfect.
Perfect. Good, good. Definitely check out his website. It's beautifully designed and it will answer a lot of your questions. And folks, if you'd like to get in touch with me, my website is shariahembry.com. I do have some links on there for my novel, Journey of the Lightworker, to Amazon and Barnes & Noble. On Amazon, it's actually discounted about 25% with free Prime shipping. And I do have some free guided meditations on attracting love, money, and abundance, and overcoming obstacles. Perfect for this year.
Okay.
And Rob, thank you so much for being a guest today. Any parting words you'd like to offer to the audience?
I just have so much love and appreciation and gratitude for you, Shari. I mean, I love what you're doing. I love how you're doing it. And most of all, I love who you are. So thank you for being the shining, living example of light and love that you are.
Oh, thank you so much, Rob. And that is coming from one light worker to the next. And everyone, please shine your light out in the world this week because we need you. Everyone have a blessed, wonderful day. Namaste.